We're back. Part two of the condominium disclosure form. So, a couple things here before I get into this. Number one, if you don't understand SIRS, milestone inspections, and the turnover inspection, go back and review the previous videos and other emails that I've sent out. Also, go and take a look at the Florida Realtors website. They've got a great video on that. I included that in the email that I sent out prior, and it's also on the Facebook page. If you don't understand, if you're not getting it from there, go elsewhere. All right, because if you don't understand that, then if you don't understand what SIRS means, milestones, who needs them, what, when, how, whomever, this addendum is useless to you because you don't understand what's happening. Go and educate yourself likewise. So here we go. Let's get into this. The governance form, again, as I talked about prior, this is a form which you can download from the DBPR. And also a lot of agents, they keep it on their computer, so keep this. And this is something that you're supposed to send out as part of the condominium documents. It just spells out that the property is located in some sort of a community, and they're going to be subject to rules and regulations of a condominium and a homeowners association. So the milestone inspection report. So this right here, basically they're calling upon the home seller to disclose whether or not they're supposed to have a milestone inspection report. And remember, I'll go a little bit of review here. When we're talking about milestone inspections, SIRS, and these turnover inspection reports, we're talking about units that are 3 stories and above. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, for a milestone inspection, the first test is this. Number one, is it 3 stories? And if the answer to that is yes, then you're going to have to move on to the second phase of this question. Milestone inspection, is the property 25 years old? Because hold that thought right here. If the property is 25 years old since the certificate of occupancy, and it's within 3 miles of the coastline, yes, you're going to need a milestone inspection report. Now, if you're outside of that, right, the building has to be 30 years old. Now, the state website, the state rules is a little bit different. So if you actually look at the statute, if you look at the legalese that's on there, what happened is the state gave municipalities, this is very important. Listen, the state gave local governments, the ability to require milestone inspections. So areas which are closer to the ocean, Naples, are allowed to require communities to have these milestone inspections. And so in Naples, if you look at naplesgov.com, if you're within 3 miles of the coastline, you're less than 20. If you're 25 years old or older, you are required to have these so-called milestone inspections, which are done by a structural engineer or an architect. If you're beyond that, 30. If you're beyond 3 miles, you have to be 30 years old. And these milestone inspections are going to be done every 10 years. So if you're in a condominium, the home seller is going to have to be able to disclose whether or not these milestone inspections are required or not. They're not putting it upon the buyer to find this out. So you as a listing agent are going to have to understand this and know what a milestone inspection is and if I need it. And remember, a milestone inspection is not the same as a SIRS inspection. So you got milestone inspection, SIRS inspection. And so there's some language in here that stipulates if it is required and has been completed. It is not required, it has been completed. It is required to have been completed, but it has not been done. All right, so there's some 3 different scenarios right here. Then we move on to structural integrity reserve study, AKA SIRS. So SIRS is a little bit different. But remember, SIRS has nothing to do with the age of the property. But how do you know you need a SIRS inspection report? It's a structural integrity reserve study. Number one, you have to be 3 stories or above. Or if you're 3 stories or above, you're going to need to have the SIRS study done. Also, if you were at a condominium prior to July 2022, which is the vast majority of these, of these condominiums were basically built prior to 2022. So if you're in 3 stories, doesn't matter how far away you are from the ocean or whatever, you're going to have a structural integrity reserve study. And if you ask me, these structural integrity reserve studies are actually kind of cool because right now, before all this, if you look at any sort of condominium, you're required to have a reserve for the roof, required to have a reserve for the streets, and required to have a reserve fund for the paint. Now, the structural integrity reserves regulations expands upon that. Now, there's 10 different criteria that you have to have, and anything that would take $10,000 or more over needs to have a study done for that with regards to repair. So again, this is for everything that's 3 stories and above that was in a condominium prior to 2022. Again, the same sort of language we see. It is required and has been completed. It is not required, and it is required, but it has not been completed. So as you can imagine, if you're in a 2-story condominium, what you would put for these right here, think about this, guys. If you're in a 2-story condominium, you're going to mark this up right here. It is not required to have completed a milestone inspection report. All right. If you're in a 2-story condominium, you're going to say it is not required. So do I have to fill this out if I'm in a 2-story condominium? Yeah, you do. So we're not going to put it upon these northern people, these northern buyers, these people that are coming from these different areas to understand anything about what we have going on down here. So the home seller and you, Mr. Realtor, this means you're going to have to find out what's going on with this property that you're selling. All right, down here, turnover inspection report. This is big. This is for new construction. So when you see the word turnover, if you're selling a property that's new or something that's relatively new since 2023, the developer, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a background here. When a builder is building a community, they set up the community in the form of a not-for-profit corporation, and that's really what homeowners associations and condominiums are. Is they're not-for-profit corporations. But the builder, what they'll do is they'll maintain legally 100% of the voting rights for that particular corporation. So when the community is getting ready to be handed over, the developer's like, okay, I'm out of here. What they do is they get together with the people that live within the community, and they create a governing body, a president, a treasurer, a secretary, and all the different individuals that we associate with a not-for-profit, with a corporation. And the builder, what they do is they hand over 100% of their voting rights to everybody else within the community. In other words, they're turning over their voting rights to the community. But the kicker is this. A lot of these people that live in these communities, especially in new construction, and what comes to my mind right now is this new stuff that's being built over there on Vanderbilt, Stock Development, Brian Stock, they're going to have to put together a turnover report. So what's going to happen is that builder is going to say, look, this roof is going to probably cost you about $1.5 million. All these, the roads in here are going to cost you X amount of dollars. It's going to cost you probably $500,000 to paint the building. It's going to do all these different sort of deferred maintenance items. They're going to put together a report for these new homeowners. Remember, these new homeowners, they don't know anything about construction. They don't know anything. They don't know anything about building maintenance. And you know what? A lot of these property managers don't know either. So they're putting it upon the developer to put together the study to educate these new buyers, these new homeowners, about the deferred maintenance and the different things that they have to plan for over the course of this structure, so they don't get themselves into a pickle like they did over in the Champlain Towers, where the building collapses because nobody knows anything about construction. They say, well, we'll go ahead and we'll just forget about this. We don't need to worry about this wall that's coming down. We'll just get some duct tape. It's not happening anymore, right? So when you see the word turnover, think new construction, and that's the spirit of what this is. And so there's some language in here that addresses each of these particular scenarios. If it's required and it's been completed, if it's not required, again, if you're in a condominium and it's not 3 stories, look, it's not required. So yeah, so you're still going to have to kind of mark. You're going to have to mark that off. If I'm buying a condominium and it's new construction, yeah, it's not required. So now down here, all of this language in here pertains to whether or not, if you look at right here, you got to follow the bouncing ball right here. It says check only one box if the association has completed a milestone inspection in paragraph 10B, or a structural reserve study 10C1, or a turnover report as in 10D1. So you're going to only check one of these boxes. Check one box if one of these if all 3 of these if these 3 boxes here are checked. All right. So basically this. So if this box is checked, if one of these boxes is checked, or if one of these boxes is checked, all right, you're going to only check one of these boxes. So if you have these reserve studies, these either a milestone or a SIR study or a turnover study, then you're going to check this box right here. But if not, all right, then you're going to check this box down here. So pay attention to this. This is extremely important. This is very, very detailed. You have to say, if one of these boxes is marked up here, if, then you're going to check one of these boxes down here. So as we recall prior, remember old school, that the home buyer has 3 days to rescind a contract once they receive those the so-called condominium documents. Now this language right here has everything to do with the condominium documents as we know them. Remember the declaration of condominiums, the articles of incorporation, the bylaws, the rules and regulations, and a copy of the most recent annual financial statement. Remember, this changed. It used to be last year's, now it's the most recent. And so if you've been given this prior to execution of the document, you're going to check, or prior to execution of the contract, you're going to check this. But if you have not received those condo docs, you're going to check this. And remember, if you give those condominium documents to a prospective buyer after the executed agreement, the clock starts ticking. So let's just say that you give that person if you give that buyer, if you're a listing agent and you give the buyer the condominium documents 5 days after the executed contract, that individual has 3 days beyond the 5 days to terminate the deal. So get the buyer the condominium documents. This is why it's so important. Gather all of your information prior to putting the property into the multiple listing service, because the last thing that you want is you don't want to be compiling documents while this home buyer is out there in the ether, because you know what? They could terminate the deal. And if that buyer terminates the deal because you were just slow and you didn't get the documents to that buyer, that home seller is going to be mad at you and say, "What are you doing? I didn't know that." So get your documents, get all these documents together, and have them prepared prior to putting it onto the MLS. I know that we're all very, very. You get a listing, you're very pumped up, you're ready to go. You want to get on the market, you got to get everything together, and that's just the best practice. All right, disclosure summary. This down here, we talked about this. This only really has to do if this is a disclosure to a buyer if they're buying into a condotel or like a mixed use development, like say like a Mercado or something like that. So this is just what this addresses down here. And they put down a space down here, which I think is great. Now we need a contact person for the association and the management company. So this is a really long. This is probably one of the longest videos I've ever done, but it's extremely important. All right, and you have to understand this. So I did it in two parts, and yeah. So make sure, in closing, make sure that you understand milestone inspections. Make sure that you understand SIRS. Make sure you understand turnover inspections, who needs them, when they need to be done by. Educate yourself on that, and then tackle this condominium addendum. And remember, if you have a listing, you're going to have to include this condominium addendum, including the neighbor one, which is not even close to as complicated as this one. But you're going to have to include that with your deals going forward. So there you go. Man, that's a long one.